What is up, everybody? This is Steve Breach coming to you here today. I'm driving home on Memorial Day weekend. As of right now, I'm the only sucker leaving work. There's basically nobody out on the road anywhere. But, not really much going on in the world of professional wrestling, but something that honestly is near and dear to my heart, that I really appreciate, even though I don't really appreciate going to, or I can't really remember the last time I watched one on TV. But I think it's so cool when you get to see that, like, somebody is going into the WWE Hall of Fame that year at WrestleMania. That sort of like throwback the clock vignette video that they make, sort of like chronicalized, whatever the word is I'm looking for here, that like glorifies their career in the WWF or in the world of wrestling, to make them, if you're a fan that has never seen that person, go, oh, wow, yeah, I guess they do, deserve to go into the Hall of Fame. To me, honestly, one of my favorite tag teams, when I was a young kid, when I was growing up, this was, when tag team wrestling honestly mattered in the WWF. You go back to those days of like those early Survivor Series where they wouldn't go 5-on-5. They would go 10-on-10 because it was the tag team division. And you had, members of the tag teams like that could fill that. They weren't filling it with jobbers. They weren't filling it with low card two guys that just teamed up together because they really didn't have anything to do. These were tag teams. They had a name. They had matching gear. They had a reason to be there, and you looked at them and you really believed that they were, friends, whether if they were good guys or whether if they were just two bad guys that like to beat guys up together. One of the most dominant members of that tag team division from like the glory WWF days was Demolition. Demolition went on a tear. Axe and Smash. These guys, first were brought out as being bad guys that were managed by the evil Mr. Fuji. And then the double turn at the Survivor Series with the Powers of Pain, where the Demolition felt that, Mr. Fuji messed up and hit the wrong dude with the cane, and that led to them being eliminated from the match. They beat up Mr. Fuji, left him laying. Powers of Pain walked up, brushed him off, and said, hey, this guy has been dominant in the tag team division. Why not, help this guy out and say, hey, you're with us now. And Demolition became babyfaces that day. That was the first double turn I ever saw in wrestling, and it worked for me as a kid. Now, let me get into Demolition as a whole. I was a WWF kid. The most NWA/WCW that I watched was when I accidentally woke up really early on a Saturday morning, and I was able to catch the early morning TBS show. Here on the West Coast, with TBS airing live, I guess you can say at that time, it really wasn't generated for us, to get to see WCW. It was almost accidental. Or when you went to Blockbuster and you saw all of the, I was about to say DVD, but all of the VHS cases sitting there on the rack, and you'd be like, I know who these guys are. I can remember seeing the War Games VHS as a kid forever, and always like being tempted to get it, but because like it looked like those guys were gonna beat the hell out of each other, there was a cage on the actual VHS that I was like, man, it looks like this is gonna be some damn good wrestling. But the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan are on this tape, so I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to get this one. I didn't really rent NWA or WCW VHSs. It wasn't until I became older and got into tape trading where, I got into, like, figuring out what War Games was. So, Demolition, copycat of the Road Warriors. Yes! Today, 2024, I will admit this, but I didn't really know who the Road Warriors were. So when I saw Demolition, I thought they were just two badass dudes. Now, I even look at the Powers of Pain, Warlord and the Barbarian, and I'm like, these guys were even more of a copycat of the Road Warriors. They just basically weren't wearing the shoulder pads, but they had their own shoulder pads. They just weren't with spikes. Well, when you first saw Powers of Pain, they were coming down with like skull and fur, basically like showing what they killed that day on the way to the arena. But Demolition, I mean, they went on a run where they won the tag team titles. I believe they won them from Strikeforce. I want to say it was like WrestleMania 5, and they held those belts for close to when they did the match against the Colossal Connection, which was Andre the Giant and Haku, where they actually got beat on an episode of The Superstars, and then they ended up doing the title switch again at WrestleMania. These guys were dominant, and I think I was wrong. They didn't win them from Strikeforce because it was freaking wasn't it the Tully and Arn, the Brainbusters? I think they beat them to Strikeforce. So I don't really remember when they picked them up, but they went on a dominant run where nobody came close to that tag team championship record until it was finally broken by the New Day. And I can honestly tell you that I don't think the New Day's run was as dominant as Demolition was. Demolition, you never got close to even beating those guys. Whether if it was Axe, whether it was Smash, both of those guys, Bill Eadie, and then Barry Dorso. Barry Dorso was so good in the WWF that he would go on, he would be Repo Man, and then even after that, he ended up finding a way to stay in WCW for years after his career should have been over. He's one of those guys that you looked at back then and you're like, damn, these dudes are old, they're veterans. And then you're like, look at the guys' ages today, and you're like, oh my gosh, like we thought these guys were getting farmed out to the pasture and they were done. And, we're still looking at the guys today like they got like 10 years left in the tank. I mean, look at AJ Styles. It was only a few years ago we were wondering if WWE would even touch him out of New Japan because of his age, and then we all thought that he was going to have to go to the power plant and work like an NXT schedule for a year. And then, like, that's wasting, part of his deal, and, yeah, it's stupid. But, it didn't matter who you put these guys in the ring against. Demolition, they also had the awesome moment of going into the Royal Rumble, number 1 and number 2. And instead of just being there and just like, we're going to wait for number 3 to come out and then we're just going to take everybody on 2-on-1, they looked at it as, it doesn't matter in this match if you're friend or foe, you got to fight. And they did it. You got to like tip your hat of like, damn, they went out there and did it. There's been lots of talk of the reason why Demolition is not in the WWE Hall of Fame is basically out of spite, I guess you can say, is that they joined in with the lawsuit against the WWE at the time. I believe it was over concussions and not being able to be taken care of. The older guys later on in their career, once we knew like what CTE was and things like that, and that was a lawsuit that went on for years before finally being thrown out. And normally with WWE is like, once it's all said and done, business is business, and these guys were an awesome team back in the day. There's some people that say that there's a rift over when Demolition was first disbanded. That Bill Eadie believed that he owned the name and the gimmick, where he was running a Demolition out on the Independence, and they fought over the name. There was a lawsuit, and once again, it was settled and it was done. So I don't know. We're in a new era. We all talked about it at the Hall of Fame last year, where Triple H is now going to be naming who goes into the Hall of Fame. I don't think it's really just going to be, you know, this is my favorite and blah, 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 because the guys that I thought were going to be easy Hall of Fame names, whether if it was like Terry Taylor, Steven Regal, guys that are close to Triple H, didn't really happen last year. It ended up being like the U.S. Express, ended up being the tag team that went in to the Hall of Fame. And I thought that they honestly deserved it. Yes, you know, they were, you know, early on awesome members of the WWF roster. And, you know, they went on both to have really big careers in the WWE, and that might have been the easiest way to get them in the Hall of Fame, even though I think that they kind of deserve to get in there as singles. But, yeah, it is what it is. But this year, I think, honestly, has to be Demolition. I can't think of anybody else out there, unless they want to, you know, even then, I don't think. But I mean, like let's say Arn Anderson isn't with AEW anymore, or maybe there's like a truth drawn in the sand, like a team like the Brainbusters, where you get Arn Anderson, and you get Tully Blanchard. They're both already in there from the Four Horsemen, but now they would sort of be almost in there as like themselves, I guess you can say, because Ric Flair wasn't around during those WWF days. But I don't know. It is what it is. I really believe in Demolition. I, you know, openly say that I think that they're my number one favorite tag team, because of like what I talked about earlier. I didn't have the Road Warriors. I didn't have the Legion of Doom. I can remember knowing who they were when they debuted in WWF, and then they did that quick kind of teaser feud against each other. But like, I didn't really know who they were. I even as like right now, like they're putting a Major Bendy up on, no, not a Major Bendy, they're putting a Big Rubber Guy of the Road Warriors. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I really wish that was Legion of Doom, and we had the orange, you know, cartoony spikes on those figures, and I think they would be better. And that's what honestly what I'm going to wait for, whether if it's going to be like a repaint, whether if it's going to be just new pads put on the same dudes with different face paint. I'll wait. I think that's going to be. Also with Demolition, they I mean, I didn't know who the Freebirds were, so possibly into the 2010s at the end is when I watched the Mid-South, the documentary on them. I think that was like one of the first times I saw them. But when they added a new member to Demolition, my mind was blown. You know, of course, that would be Crush, who would go on to be Kona Crush, Brian Adams, for the NWO fans out there. But that was the first time I was like, they can pick who's going to be in the tag team. They have 3 dudes, but you're going to go into the fight not knowing who it's going to be against, and you can sort of like put Axe on the outs, who is definitely the older guy, who wasn't in as much shape as the other guys. I didn't know at the time that they were trying to push him out so Demolition could keep going as a tag team. And that was one of the ways that they could like quickly evolve them. They ran them almost like a small faction, where, you know, even if 2 dudes fought on a card, the other guy could be there and he could fight in a singles match. And I just thought that was freaking awesome. First time I ever saw that. Didn't really know about the Freebirds or the Freebird rule at the time. I don't even know if they called it the Freebird rule, but they could have, because that's, you know, basically what they call it now. Especially like when New Day had the tag titles back in the day when they were running through it. And maybe that's one of the reasons why their reign shouldn't count. And Demolition still have that record, because you never knew who was going to be in there. But I don't know. I don't really know why I haven't made this video before. I don't really know why they're not in there. I think that Demolition is the most deserving tag team, whether if it's ECW, whether if it's WCW, where if it's WWF, WWE. I think that they're number 1. They deserve to be there. And I would love WrestleMania 41, Demolition, Hall of Fame.